Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle and this is my Cloak and Dagger Christmas recommendations video for the Conservatory. I'm going to put my announcement video up in the cards. If you haven't seen that, I would recommend you start there. So in this video, I am going to recommend books that fit the prompt of the Conservatory. So books that are about nature or travel or warm climates. And so let's just dive right in. My first recommendation is The Dry by Jane Harper. This is from 2016 and it is set in Australia. And so I'm using this primarily for nature, but it could also count for travel, unless of course you're from Australia. So The Dry, this is the story of Aaron Falk, who is a federal agent, but in this book he heads back to his hometown because a good friend of his from his childhood is dead and his entire family has been murdered. And so Aaron Falk goes back for the funerals and ends up kind of investigating. So there's a lot about what happened when they were kids and secrets and lies. And I mean, it's great. It's such a good book. But the reason why I'm recommending it for nature is because it takes place during a drought. And Jane Harper manages to write in such an atmospheric way that you can almost taste the dust in your mouth. It's so dry and it's so like the ground is cracked and there is dust everywhere and there is constant threat of wildfires, and it is just so, she's so descriptive that you can taste it, you can feel it. It's just like it's like constantly it's such a part of the story that it's just hovering all the time. And so I think it is a great recommendation for nature. It's also just a really great story. I highly recommend it. Next up, for travel, also at warm climate, I want to recommend The Mark of the Lion by Suzanne Arruda. This is from 2006 and it's the first in her series. The main character is called Jade. Jade Del Cameron. It is set in 1919. So Jade is an American who drove ambulances in France during the war, the First World War. And she is asked by someone she knew in the war to find the brother that he only recently learned that he had. And so she ends up traveling to East Africa. She travels to Kenya in order to try and find this brother. So it definitely counts for travel. It definitely counts for a warm climate. Bonus prompt, you can use it for the lounge because it is set, it's technically set between the wars. We've been saying 1920s and 1930s, but the golden age, they say, really is between the wars. And so even though it's 1919, it totally counts because it's after the war. And so this is a really interesting series. Jade is a great character. She's strong and interesting, and I love that they're set in Africa, and it's that interesting time period of just following World War I, and so for her to be a single woman, you know, in Africa on her own, there's a lot of disadvantages to her, but she's very strong, and so yeah, this is a really good series. Next up, for warm climate, I want to recommend Robert Thorogood's Death in Paradise series. I have two here. This is Murder in the Caribbean and Death Knocks Twice. So if you have seen Death in Paradise, the TV series, that was created by Robert Thorogood. He uses the character, the first inspector, D.I. Richard Poole, and he has written some books. These are new stories. They aren't the same stories as on the TV show, and these are great. They are very often locked room, impossible crime type stories, just like the TV show, and you get the same characters from the initial seasons, and they are just really fun mysteries. I really enjoy them. I like the way that Robert Thorogood writes, and I like that because I've seen the show, I picture those characters in my mind when I read when I read the books. But they're really fun. They're you know, somewhat light. They're lighthearted. I really enjoy that they're modern day locked room, impossible crime stories primarily, and so I can highly recommend this series. And then my Christie recommendations. For nature, I want to recommend Ordeal by Innocence from 1958. This is a story of the family, the Argyle family, and when the story opens, the mother has been killed and the son, Jacko, has been arrested and sentenced and put in prison for her murder. He dies in prison while serving a life sentence. And so all of that has happened kind of before the story opens. When the story opens, Mr. Calgary shows up at the family home saying the alibi that Jack claimed to have, it was true, it was me. I picked him up and I drove him to, I can't remember where. But so Dr. Calgary is a geophysicist, and he left to go to the Arctic for an expedition, and didn't know that all of this was happening while he was away. And so now that he's back and he realizes what happens, he kind of feels like he needs to tell the truth and kind of discover what actually happened. And so I'm calling this one For Nature because he is a geophysicist who was on expedition to the Arctic. Next up, we have Death on the Nile from 1937. I am using this for travel because it is set in Egypt, but the murder happens while they are actually traveling on the Nile on a steamer boat. And so the murder actually happens while they're traveling, so I thought that was perfect. You can also use this for The Lounge because it was written in 1937. You can also use this for The Dining Room because there is a closed circle of suspects on the ship, on the boat. And I just highly, highly recommend Death on the Nile. Is one of my absolute favorite Agatha Christie's. It's a Hercule Poirot. It has great characters and just a tight plot that is brilliant. And I just recently reread this, and I was just amazed at how Agatha Christie subtly puts her clues in the story, and she does it in such a way that you miss them because you think something else in that paragraph is what's important, or she buries her clues in these conversations. Like, it's just, oh, she's so good at the plot and at the clues, and yeah, I highly recommend Death on the Nile. It is fantastic. Next up is Appointment with Death. This is for the warm climate because it takes place in Jerusalem/Petra. And so we're in the Middle East here, definitely a warm climate. This was written in 1938, and this is also a Hercule Poirot. So the book opens, he is on holiday in Jerusalem and where he meets the Boynton clan. And Mrs. Boynton, I have to say, is one of the most evil characters I have ever read. Agatha Christie managed to create such a great villain in Mrs. Boynton. So she is a woman who has such a psychological hold on her children, she exercises so much control over this family, because these kids are all grown up. They're all adults, and they're on vacation they're Americans, they're on vacation, but she exercises so much control over this family. It is so good. Appointment with Death is also one of my absolute favorite Agatha Christie's. I've got a bookmark in it because I'm actually currently rereading it right now. And so you can use this one also for the lounge, because it is set in 1938. Sorry, it was written in 1938. You can also use it for the dining room because it also has a small group of people, a closed circle of suspects. And then finally, a Caribbean mystery from 1964. This is from a warm climate because Miss Marple goes on holiday to the Caribbean, where murder happens at her hotel. So this one can also count for the dining room because it is set in a hotel. And it also has a small cast of characters, so a dining room is definitely a good prompt for this one as well. So this is a Marple. I love Marple. I think she's great. I love how she, nothing surprises her about human nature, and because of that, she is able to see things in other people that people miss. And so, yeah, a Caribbean mystery for warm climate. So those are my recommendations for the Conservatory. I hope something here prompted your interest, and I will see you for my next recommendations video soon. Bye.